Drives me nuts. Mychael, this is a question for you. Is it The Breach? Is it okay? On The Breach, what was the inspiration for the direction on that score? It's very specific. Admirer.
That's a film. Breach is a film Billy Ray directed. We worked together on an earlier film called Shattered Glass, so we already had that trust built up to a large degree, and had a shorthand of being able to communicate and a trust and a lot of fun to work with somebody the second time, really, and we wanted a score that was really just very simple and clean. It wasn't showy. That was very Billy. I think that film is in a lot of ways like a 70s kind of a political thriller, harkening back to the 70s days. So we didn't want to have anything that was kind of out of place or jarring. No, just something kind of clean and black and white, and so really that was. And also just to really play the tragedy of the character. There's certainly one theme that does that. Certainly not to be judgmental about him one way or another, but just to play up the tragic arc in the classic, classical sense of when you start the film, you know where you're going to go.
Do you think that in general, because I know that concert composers talk about this, that it was easier for Mozart than it is for us because Mozart had a style to write in. Handel had a style to write in. Do you think that in some respects it was easier for people like Korngold or Steiner to be able to do their work since they had a well-defined style and were not expected to do anything other than that style than how it is today, where every project is truly unique, and particularly for people like yourselves that bring new and interesting things? You have the many choices to make and you decide on this or that, either by yourself or in collaboration. Do you think it's more difficult now to do scores successfully?
It's a different kind of difficult. It's a different kind of creativity, and it's an interesting question. Because if you were a composer in the year, 1750, there weren't a lot of choices in if you were writing for the court or you're writing for the church. In Europe, you have a very distinct style. You had a very distinct set of instruments. And obviously that creativity at that time took its own path, and melodically and harmonically and so on. It's an interesting point that nowadays the creativity is more kind of basic in the sense that everything can be questioned, everything can be turned around, and choices are much greater. I don't know if difficult is the right word. I'm glad I'm writing now.
No, I mean every creative act is difficult, but we have now so many options, like being at a smorgasbord, whereas before it was mostly meat and potatoes.
Yeah, I think if you have a short attention span like I do, these are good times.
I think it's creativity now is you have to start with the concept. You're allowed to sort of reconceptualize your starting point, where that was something that was set in earlier times, and therefore the creativity was more in the fine points of it and the nuts and bolts. I think to some degree to have to keep creating within a smaller box all the time could be actually harder, And I find the fact that if I'll go from like the Black Dahlia, which is all orchestral and deliberately written in an older genre, to something like Crash, I find it sort of revitalizing. Mm-hmm. That you just completely change universes, and that can be very inspiring.
Do you have any feeling one way or the other on it, or you don't have to answer this? I mean, it's not a test. I'm really just curious how you get to it.
I like both sides of it. I like those. I love those composers who don't really. I mean, it's like Sean Connery in The Hunt for Red October. Other people are trying to put on Russian accents, and he's Sean Connery, so he just. I like that. I like that. John Barry scored "Cry the Beloved Country," and I thought utterly gorgeous score, a gorgeous accompaniment to the film. And did he make any sort of effort to be African? Not that I noticed, And And I kind of like that. I like the people. I value the people who have their way of working and stick with it. I mean, I was thinking also with regard to the previous question, I wouldn't want to see Lawrence of Arabia with an ethnically appropriate score. I like it with Maurice Jarre's very Eurocentric, facsimile of This Is Exotic. It's not supposed to be real, it's what it is. So I value that, but the plethora of colours that are available to us. It's what's risky is when we get sort of distracted by style or some sort of concept of how it has to be on certain kinds of instruments, and it just doesn't feel comfortable trying to tell a story with those instruments.
How do you break that? By visiting specific players, or?
I don't know. I mean, for me, I will do the research, and then if it feels appropriate, I'll ignore the research. I mean, I did a film recently called The Hunting Party, and it's set in the Balkans. And originally, I was told, well, we're going to use needle drops, we're going to use records for all the ethnic qualities. So you just write the American score, and then they had no money. So when it came to it, they went, and really make the score have a sense of place. We want people to feel like they've gone there. So then I did the research and I listened to loads of stuff and realized I wasn't remotely interested in sounding authentic because it didn't have drama to it in the way that score, songs frequently don't have, a sense of dramatic build and tension and energy. They have, grooves and qualities. But so I was interested in borrowing grooves and qualities, but not interested in being Balkan and being too authentic about it. So I borrowed what colours I wanted, but essentially was fairly cavalier because I was writing a score for an American film, and I enjoyed. I was thinking, what kind of film do I want to go and see? And I didn't want to be. I wanted a certain kind of energy, and so that's what I.
Well, it is a movie.
It is a movie,
Yeah,
exactly.
You get some leeway there.
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, I remember hearing, years ago, David Byrne being asked about his contribution to The Last Emperor, and being asked, how did you write authentic Chinese music? And I think the answer is actually fairly simple. He, wrote what he wanted to write and hired a bunch of authentic Chinese musicians to then make it sound Chinese. And so it has all the qualities. It has everything that he wanted to contribute, and it has all the qualities that of sort of ethnic sort of validity
That they could deal with anyway.
Right.
Yeah. I have one specific question for you, Rolf. The jury. I'm reading this literally. If not your best score, certainly one of your best, is not even mentioned in your notes, or our notes. It was a very complex and beautiful work. How long did it take to compose it? Now that's probably a good question in general. How much time generally do we get these days on films? Do you get 2 weeks,
the
6
jury's
weeks?
not a film. The jury's a mini-series.
Oh.
And it was done. It was done in about 6 weeks, I think, and it was
How many hours? Was it?
How many hours?
Well, I mean, it was a mini series.
Oh, it was 6. It was 6 episodes. It came out on PBS, and it was entirely my Mac plus one singer, and how long did it take to do? Oddly, I mean, it's a very dramatic piece. It's not funny at all, which was kind of why I did it, and oddly, it was incredibly. Once I got into it, it was incredibly simple to do. Because partly because I had a great singer. I did it in England, and the amount of passion and soul that the singer, this woman, put into it was just made it incredibly easy to write. I was writing. I'd sometimes chastised other people for writing what I call nonsense, as in it sounds like language, but it isn't. But I had no time to write lyrics or anything, so I broke my own rule, and I wrote all these sort of syllables and came out with tunes. And at one point, this wonderful woman laughed, and she said, "The syllable is here." And I went, "Yeah." She says, "It's the Italian for asshole." So I changed that one, but